My name is Gassia Mikaelian. I'm an anchor and reporter at KTVU Fox 2 News, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. We're going to talk about how COVID-19 is affecting people's personal finances and jobs. Let's welcome to the conversation Winnie Sun, managing partner, Sun Group Wealth Partners. Thank you for joining me, Winnie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here with you.
I appreciate your being here. We're going to have to start with some negative news, and that is many large companies are announcing more layoffs. Give us a roundup of how this is affecting Americans financially.
Yes, unfortunately, you've seen the news, and we anticipate more of this news coming out. We just heard that Boeing laid off almost 7,000 people. It might be going down to 16,000 employees are going to be laid off. And so there's a lot of things. If you find yourself in this situation, the first thing to do is not to panic and know that there's a lot of resources out there to help you through this process. But it's important for you to sort of take a breather, take a moment to grieve if you need to, but then step into action. A lot of people think the first thing you should do is actually file for unemployment. And believe it or not, that's actually not the first step. I've actually helped clients through this process over the last 20 years, hundreds of employees going through this change. So the first thing you want to do is to go to your HR department or your benefits department at work and collect information. And what I mean by that is figure out all your statements, where your money is, where your medical benefits are, and all the things that you might still have that are in your name that are of value. So that's really the first step. And then the second step is really then to test your usernames and passwords and make sure you have access to your accounts once you leave your organization, because a lot of us use intranet.
I know a lot of us, even just speaking in my little newsroom, we rely directly on Chris, the head of HR, for how do I print a paycheck? Hey, how do I get into my 401k? Once you've left the company, you really don't have that easy access of just calling upstairs.
Absolutely. You don't have that easy access. And, we sometimes get so used to just going through our internet, clicking where we need to be. But what I want you to do is test those usernames and passwords and test them again and again. Make sure you keep the information in a secure place, written down. And that way, if you need to access that information, you can. Plus, a big thing is a lot of companies are going through changes right now, which can affect not only yourself, but also the HR department, the accounting department. So I always say get redundancy. Make sure you have multiple contacts in HR, multiple contacts in accounting and the benefits department too, because I've had actually clients 5-10 years later need to go and retrieve old documents, old pension statements. And so if you don't know who to go to, you need to be able to find those contacts later on. So don't just assume that that's easy. The next thing you want to do, and this is a big one, is to jump on LinkedIn, get connected with everybody still at your company, and start asking for those endorsements, those public endorsements, because that'll help you get your next job.
I know that a lot of people, look, I've been through it. Losing a job is traumatic at any time. When we're in the middle of a health pandemic and we are seeing unemployment well into the double digits, it's the worst time to be unemployed now compared to, let's say, 6 months ago.
Absolutely. Like, this is a really difficult time because, as you know, getting laid off, that means also you have to file for unemployment, which is also a lot of people are unemployment. And fortunately, there's a little bit of federal relief right now, but that's only till July. And it's really difficult to find that next job if you can't interview in person. You're probably doing a lot of interviews like this, but also because we've got 40+ million Americans unemployed, there's a lot of competition for those ideal positions that will still let you work from home in the beginning. So this is really time to get into action, not to panic, but also to really set yourself up to plan for that next job.
What do you expect to see when it comes to the federal response? You mentioned some enhanced unemployment benefits. I know many people are receiving stimulus checks. Do you expect another similar package to be passed?
I think there'll be another package. There better be another package, but I don't think it'll be the same. And unfortunately, we've seen this happen already. The HEROES Act, which one party is trying to get through, already passed the House, but it's getting stuck. It's not going to pass the Senate. We've already been told that. It's going to look very, very different. Unfortunately, the HEROES Act would have given employees, especially those who are laid off, a lot of relief, because the HEROES Act was suggesting that the $600 bonus, the federal relief, would continue until January of 2021. Unfortunately, the other party said, well, you know what, if that happens, then people aren't going to be interested in going back to work, because in many cases, they're making more from unemployment from their state and their federal relief bonus, there's no hurry to go back to work. So unfortunately, what we're looking at is that $600 bonus from the federal relief on unemployment is going to cease to exist in July. Also, we've been told that the next stimulus package probably won't be passed for another month. That means those of you who received your $1,200 check, that could be it for a while, unfortunately.
What about those people who say, I haven't received my check yet?
So that's a good thing. A lot of people unfortunately haven't received their check yet, but we really need to talk about this. So if you've received your direct deposit, then wonderful. Some of us were expecting a check, and unfortunately, the federal government decided to send them out in debit cards, in Visa, check card, debit cards. And unfortunately, a lot of people received this in the mail. Number one, didn't want to open the envelope because of the coronavirus fears. And number two, they thought it was spam because the way it looked like spam. So unfortunately, a lot of people actually threw it away or shredded it. And so if you find yourself in that situation where you still haven't received your stimulus funds and it was supposed to be sent to you, you want to jump on the IRS website and let them know.
I know it's so interesting how, what I call good mail, right? Personally handwritten addressed to me is so rare, and really anything that has one of those plastic windows that I'm not expecting, I probably would throw right in the recycling. Can I circle back to one of the topics we touched on earlier, and that is layoffs? I've heard from people who've lost their jobs. I've also heard from people who say, I am in fear of losing my job. I'm seeing contracting happening in my sector of the workforce. It hasn't happened yet. My company announced it will be doing layoffs in the coming months. Is there anything that person can do now without receiving a formal notice?
Yes, there's a lot that you can do. One of the first things you can do is gauge this with your manager or someone in your company that you trust, and ask them, we've been hearing this in our industry. We've seen this with such and such companies. Is this something I should be concerned with? Now, understand your manager may not even know. Like, he or she might give you their best impression. But the other thing that you can do is sort of get proactive on your situation now. Like we talked about earlier, get all your finances in order. Figure out where your money is, figure out what your 401k stands, your stock option, maybe your pension. And this is a really great chance for you to actually have a conversation with a financial advisor. I mean, we're having conversations constantly with our clients, and new clients are saying, like, can you tell me if my 401k looks appropriate? What if I stop working? What will happen? What will I use to be able to pay for my living expenses between now and until my next job? So preparation is key. You can always start to reorganize and reallocate your 401k or your stock option or your IRA, and really take this time to do a deep dive of all your finances, and most importantly, get your budget in order. Look at where you're spending and where you can start cutting.
Right. I mean, if you'll allow me to speak very personally here, it was many, many years ago, but I went through, job uncertainty. And after I got over the initial shock of it, I said to my husband, how much money do we have? How long can we last in this house? How long can we, and I just really had to assess, how long will we be okay? And once I knew what that number was in months, it helped me realize, oh, they're not pulling the plug on this lifestyle tomorrow. I have this much time to see if I can recuperate financially. So, fear is one thing, but it wasn't until I actually did something with my fear that I started to feel at least a little bit more in control of the situation.
So true. I love that you share that, because it's so true. Once you get over that fear and you get proactive, then the next step, that's really when the magic happens, because then you can see, well, in many cases, a lot of the companies that we mentioned earlier are giving severance packages out to their employees as a temporary sort of bridge, right? And if you're not getting that, figure out other ways. There's things that you can do. Look at your savings. You can call friends and family for help. And more importantly, there's unemployment, and there's other things. But think of this as an opportunity to get your spending down. But most importantly, look at other ways to bring in income, because we all have skills that somebody will pay for online. We just got to get a little crafty right now. And having an extra income is never a bad thing, and especially if you get to retain your job.
Right. I think they call it a side hustle these days. We've in fact been reporting on people who've lost their jobs and are turning to what maybe used to be a hobby to now at least be a partial moneymaker. You mentioned severance. A lot of people, when they accept a job, are just so happy to sign on the dotted line, and they never think about when that job is going to end. Is severance something that you can negotiate? Is that something, I mean, I can't imagine it's something a company has to give you. How does that work?
So that's a great question. Severance typically we found is something that larger companies usually have the capability to offer employees should they do layoffs. Like I've worked with employees from the LA Times for years, and like Edison and Boeing and everywhere else. And so these sort of companies tend to, when bridging their employees, transitioning out, will give severance. But smaller companies typically not. It's not something that you see a lot of companies sort of negotiate when you're getting hired, but it's not a bad thing to ask. Just say, in your experience, when you see employees being laid off because of, whatever disaster or unexpected earnings or whatnot, have they received severance? Just to give you an idea if this is a company that has done this before, because if a company is smaller and hasn't done this before, then they can tell you, well, we've never done severance before, then you sort of had that expectation. But certainly there's a lot of things when you're looking for that next new company, take a look at, the flexibility of being able to work from home. I think that's a big thing. I've been talking to a lot of clients they're like, well, my next company, I just want to make sure I have that flexibility.
Right. Real quick, back to the severance. Is that something that, anyone who's being told that they're either being laid off or in danger of being laid off can feel very powerless?
Mm-hmm.
Is something like severance anything that worker can expect to negotiate and fight for, or is it basically a take it or leave it scenario?
Well, typically, you're offered a severance package when you're leaving. And this can include, let's say, 6 weeks of pay, up to like 6 months, up to a year, depending on the company. But oftentimes you can have a honest conversation with this employer. And you have more leverage, I would say, if you've been at the company a very long time, right? And also if you've been a very good employee, there's going to be reasons why they need to let you go, but also they want you to leave on good terms. So some things that you can ask for example, if you're close to retirement age, you should definitely ask to see if you can extend your medical benefits with this company temporarily, or even if you are, if you're just a few years from Medicare, then maybe say, can I, have retiree insurance? So I think healthcare insurance is definitely one. Matter of weeks of severance you could definitely ask for. Or some of my clients will say, what, I'm just not going to take the package because I'd rather stay at the company where I might be making less or my hours might be decreased, but I still want that security. So severance is certainly something that your company is showing you that you have been of value and they care about you and they appreciate you. So definitely that's a great place to start having conversations.
Let's talk about some of the younger or youngest workers now who may be finding themselves either out of work or in a tenuous job situation. To speak personally, again, I think when I was 25 years old, I took a new job and, they're hiring you and the HR manager said, we don't have a 401k. And I said, that's cool, because back then retirement was 100 years in the future. Now that I'm, more than halfway there, I think very seriously about my 401k. And we all know that, the most valuable thing 20-something-year-olds have is time to build their wealth. What do you say is most important for those young 25, 27, 23-year-old workers who are in this very uncertain job market?
You're absolutely right. I'm in agreement with you. I think the 401k is one of the best ways. As long as you can save for retirement when you're in your 20s, that is so powerful. So if you're in a situation where right now, for many of us, we're just happy to have a job, right? So if you can get your job and that company doesn't offer you a 401k right now, don't worry. Just get the job, make sure you get your paycheck, get your experience. As long as it's a place where you're feeling that you're contributing and you're getting contributions, then it's definitely a win right now. What I would say is this: if you don't have a 401k at work, you should definitely jump on and set up an IRA for yourself. Now, this could come in the form of a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, depending on how much money that you make. In addition, if it's a smaller company, we see this a lot with startups or just smaller companies, this doesn't mean that they don't ever want to offer your 401k. Maybe they're just so busy with building a business that they haven't even put this on their radar. So if that's a situation, after a little bit of time with this company, it's totally acceptable to go to your manager or the owner of the company and say, have you ever thought about setting up a 401k for us? Because I think that's something that we would really appreciate. And you can introduce, and they reach out to us all the time. Like we have employers reach out to us and say, my employee really wants this 401k. What does this look like? I mean, we can set that up later on. But whatever you do, even if your employer doesn't have a 401k, you definitely should do an IRA. And for those of you who do have a 401k option at work, you can still also do the IRA, which is really ideal. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of financial professionals won't even know this, but you can always have both. You can contribute to your 401k and contribute to your IRA each and every year.
And finally, for those who have been working hard and socking away money in their 401k, some are finding that they may need to take money out sooner than retirement time. I know allowances have been made against the penalties, but when does it make sense to take money out of your 401k?
So taking money out of your 401k, it really should be seen as a last resort. And the reason that is because when you do that, there's two ways, right? Either you take out the money and it's seen as a loan, so you're paying yourself interest back on this 401k loan. The CARES Act does allow us to take out more money now and extend it's a time frame for us to pay back our 401k. But I think what you want to do is look at your other options, look at your savings, your checking account, even look at borrowing money from a family or whatnot, because that's actually better. Because most people we found, once they borrow or take from their 401k, they generally don't pay themselves back. And so that really is quite harmful, because you're losing not only that tax deferral of your 401k, but if it's a traditional 401k, if you eventually don't pay yourself back, you're going to pay taxes on top of everything else. So right now, I would say, just even though that's the option, make that really a last resort. And if you're going to do it, speak with a financial professional and also speak with your accountant before doing that.
I mean, I agree with everything you've said. I cannot stress enough that when we are stressed about money, that worrying can spiral out of control, and talking with an expert really helps us get, firm, clear eyes on a situation and go from there. So Winnie Sun, I appreciate your time as always. Winnie Sun, Managing Partner, Sun Group Wealth Partners. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Of course, take care. And you can find more information on this anytime at coronavirusnow.com.